At some point in scaling my company to 8 figures, I realized that the future of my company had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with my employees. The team members of my company were going to be the ones that were scaling it, maintaining it, and innovating it all at the exact same time. And I think there's an important transition that I had to make inside of my business career where I went from being the smartest person in the room and having everybody do what I say to actually finding, cultivating, and nurturing other talented people inside the company who I could pass the reins to. And that's why we innovated and created inside of our company something that we call 90-day performance reviews. And this is where I was able to, every 90 days, sit down with every single team member that we have, all the way from a chief marketing officer down to a virtual assistant in a call center for 30 minutes. And I can get all of the feedback that I need from them in order to better run this company. So my job transition from managing softwares and sales and marketing and ad campaigns to simply managing people. And if potentially you're in a position right now where you have been banging your head against a wall trying to grow your company, and maybe you have a few team members, this video could be incredibly valuable to you because this could be the key that you need to take your company to the next level. So the importance of a 90-day performance review is incredibly simple. It is from the feedback from your team that you will be able to steer your company in the right direction. There's something that I like to call CEO think, and that is when you only have team members speaking to you on group calls, when it's not a personal, intimate setting, they feel comfortable enough to share stuff with you, or you don't speak with your team members at all. And in that instance, you have CEO think, where you think that everything is going amazing because nobody wants to tell you in front of everybody else, hey, marketing sucks, or sales sucks, or you suck, or something else sucks, right? Because they don't want to lose their job. And you haven't cultivated a culture or environment where that's going to be okay. Or at least that's how I was a few years ago. And it wasn't until I really started adding feedback loops, which is the idea that you get feedback from something and then you measure the results and then you adjust what the next action is going to be. I started doing it in my business life. I started doing it inside of my marketing, my sales. I started doing it in my personal life when I work out, maybe if I'm writing in my journal in the morning. And then I realized that it was even more important to do it when I was speaking to team members, scaling an actual team. And so me doing this every 90 days allowed me to remove that CEO think, and I could now focus on getting really hard, in-depth, and sometimes difficult to hear information straight from the people on the front lines. So now let me walk through the framework of a 90-day performance review. And then finally, I'm going to tell you some things that I learned on a 90-day performance review that allowed our company to scale to the next level. So in a 90-day performance review, obviously you're doing this every 90 days. If you're the CEO of a company, then you want to sit down for 30 minutes. I set up a calendar event on a Calendly software where all my team members book back to back, and for 4 straight days, I do 40 meetings, 30 minutes back to back. I think it is an incredible good use of your time as a CEO. Actually, one of the best things you could do is learning how to manage people better. So once the 90-day performance reviews come up, the way that I set it up is I create a Google document, and on that Google document, I write down the date, the person's name, and then I write down 3 different sections. What's going well, what do we need to work on, and then goals. So what's going well, that's how we typically start the meeting off. I like to start this off because obviously it starts things off on a positive note. So my team member will tell me, what do they think is going well in the past 90 days? What are they doing well? What do they like in the department? What do they like in the company? What do they like in another department? The vision of the company, the future of the company? What do they like that I'm doing as the CEO? So I get to write all this down and I get positive feedback on them and on the company. This is also really important because most of the times you have really incredible team members who are doing amazing things for you that unfortunately you don't get to recognize that often, simply because as a CEO, not only are you managing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 employees, but you're also doing all the other stuff that you need to inside your business. So this gives you an opportunity to really appreciate the hard work that some people are putting in, and you have to encourage them to humble brag about themselves. Then they flip it over and they can bring it to you, and now you can tell this person what they've been doing well, what you like about their department, what do you like about the future of the company. When you're speaking to them, this is also a really great time for you to show appreciation. So before my performance reviews, or even the 90 days leading up to the performance reviews, I actually write in a little document some things that I'm noticing from certain team members on both the good and the bad side, so that by the time the performance review shows up, I have all the information I need to tell them, hey, I loved 3 weeks ago when you did this one thing, when you helped this one person do this one thing. The second step of the 90-day performance review is going to be, what do we need to work on? So they're going to start with this and tell you, what do they think they need to work on, which is a really great sign if they are aware of potentially their mistakes or their flaws or their areas of weakness. If you're getting with people who say, I don't need to work on anything, then at least in our company or our culture, that's not somebody that fits, right? We want somebody who's continuously learning. As a CEO, the whole point of the 90-day performance reviews is so that I can get better at what I'm doing as well. So we ask them, what do they need to work on? What does their department need to work on? Maybe something else they notice inside the company that needs to change as well. And I get to write all of this stuff down. This is really, really valuable feedback. Like I said earlier, a lot of times people would not be willing to do this in a group setting where there's 10 people on a call, or maybe there's clients there, or maybe they felt a little intimidated. But if you create this environment where they're more comfortable saying stuff like this, you could get things that could literally transform your entire company, as I'll talk about here in a moment. Then it flips back over on you again, and now you walk through what that person needs to do better, right? What are some of the things that you've noticed the past 90 days that they're not doing a good job on, right? Maybe it's managing people, maybe it's getting deadlines done, one of a million different things it could be. Then you also say, hey, based on what they said on things that are going, that we need to work on inside the company, you can give them feedback of like, hey, we are working on these things, or I will be working on these things. I agree with you. And that kind of gives a full loop to the constructive criticism that they're giving you on both themselves and on the company. And the final portion of the 90-day performance review is going to be goals. And this is a really important section. And the specific goals that we talk about are personal, professional, and financial. And I like to talk about personal goals here because a lot of the times, if you're building a really great company and you have great company culture, people are going to be devoting, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week for years of their life to you. And I'm incredibly grateful for my team members that do that, but I also understand that they do have a personal life, and sometimes the two blend together, right? Maybe they're having problems with relationships at home. Maybe they're trying to move from one state to another state. Maybe they're having problems with their parents, whatever else it is. I've gone through quite a bit of changes in my life. I've done quite a bit of personal development. So I almost can act as a coach, or I can help them set goals on the personal side. A great example is a few of my team members, trying to lose some weight. I had a great 90-day performance review with one of my team members recently who was trying to start shedding pounds, and he was focusing on the gym and getting a personal trainer. And I was like, you just need to change the diet. Like, here's how I intermittent fast. Here's how I have a chef. And he did it. And last time I spoke on his 90-day performance review, he was down 15 pounds. And he's like, I have more energy. I feel more incredible, which is making him better at his job, right? So getting the personal goals down is really great, and then professional and financial goals. And these are important because you want to make sure that whatever the person's doing, they feel aligned as far as what they want their future to be and what you want the future of the company to be. These are sometimes some really difficult conversations when somebody wants a raise or they want to do this thing and you don't think that they're a good fit for that thing. But just like anything else in life, if you encourage or welcome uncomfortable conversations, at least you can have good communication about it and get on the same page. What you don't want is not to have those uncomfortable conversations, and then all of that resentment starts festering up until the point that they just one day quit, right? So even if you don't I'm not saying you have to give in to every single thing that these people say, but I'm saying that it at least brings you to the awareness that, hey, this person wants to be achieving this. Some of the best things that I've done is when someone asks for a raise, we walk through why we think they'd be worthy of a raise or not, which is an uncomfortable conversation. And then potentially we will align their financial goals with the financial goals of the company. So it could be like, hey, if you start doing this thing over here, or you hit this KPI, then you'll get this bonus. That way they do the thing that I want them to do, and I give them the thing that they want as far as the professional or financial goals. So finally, let me talk about some of the things that I've learned about my company through the 90-day performance reviews. So the nice thing is I have that Google document that I review at the end of every single performance review, and I set action steps for myself or for my company, and I post the information inside of our general Slack channel so everyone can see the changes that we're making. Some of the feedback that I got was, number one, I was starting to lose connection as far as culture-wise with some of our team members. I used to be on a lot more meetings, but as my schedule got more and more packed, I stopped showing up to so many meetings, and I stopped showing up to some of the culture-driven meetings, and other people were noticing that. Another great feedback that I got as well was that I was letting people go or cutting people without having the transparency, which is one of our values, of the entire company. So someone would just show up on the meeting the next day, and they just wouldn't be the person sitting next to them, and they would just have to assume in their mind what had happened, which is obviously not a great thing. So now whenever we fire someone, we cut someone, or they quit, we make sure we announce it to the entire company so that everyone's everyone's on the same page. Another great example is that we realized that we had a team member who was performing okay as far as their key performance indicators in the department was concerned, but their actual people that were working underneath them, their direct reports, hated working for this team member. They said there were all these problems with it. And so I had to have an actual really hard conversation with that team member, and eventually we cut that person, and now the department took off after we ended up doing that. So all of these things, like that specific department now brings in hundreds of thousands of dollars a month for our company, and that was because I was able to get the feedback from the people that were underneath that person, who typically wouldn't have the venue to be able to speak with me, the channel to be able to speak with me, that this is not working out. And then once we did that, it was like we unleashed the floodgates, and that department totally took off. So these are all examples of conversations that would be very difficult to have with specific team members, especially if you have hierarchies in your corporation or in your company where it's like you, then you have your direct reports, and then they have their direct reports. It becomes very difficult to have really in-depth conversations with those people.